Edinburgh is the hometown of Lord Hope and his ancestors. He's descended from a long line of Scottish lawyers, dating back to the Lord Advocate to King Charles I. His choice of career seems in keeping with family tradition.
You wanted to see some pictures of my previous existence. This is me as Dean of the Faculty of Advocates. So I'm rather proud of that picture, which shows me holding the Dean's baton. And after that, I was appointed to the bench as Lord Justice General of Scotland, and this is me looking very grim, as I thought was probably suitable for me as a judge in charge of criminal process in Scotland.
A life in the law may have seemed like a foregone conclusion, but it was not an easy choice to make.
I was a family of one of six, so such resources as there were had to be spread fairly thinly among us. So I've always had to work on the basis that I had to look after myself and my keep, which was why that decision initially was a very difficult one, because I didn't have any money to support myself through the early stages of the bar. But my wife, fortunately, we married shortly after I was called. She was a teacher, and we had enough to keep going.
Lord Hope remembers his initial sense of fairness and unfairness came from his childhood experiences at Rugby School.
Certainly at school, yes, certainly when you were ticked off by a teacher for something you didn't really think you'd done. Yes, I do remember those. Yes, and you didn't often get a chance to defend yourself, actually. That was my experience. The teacher would say, you did something or failed to do something, and that was that. That was his judgment, and you didn't get a chance to say, hey, wait a moment, it was a mistake. I didn't mean to do that, or in fact, you failed to see what I did.
The court reflects the entire United Kingdom. Northern Ireland is represented by Lurgan-born Lord Kerr. His Catholic upbringing is not an area he will discuss publicly, though his career has inevitably been affected by the explosive mix of religion and politics. Lord Kerr was just 22 when he was called to the bar. More recently, he oversaw the Good Friday Peace Agreement.
No one in my family had been involved in the practice of law at all. If I'm absolutely honest, I chose law because I didn't want to do arts, and I probably couldn't have done science, and law seemed the only option.
Now living in London, his relaxed weekend routine starts by making breakfast for his wife.
I don't drink tea. I don't like eggs. I'm afraid I loathe Marmite, but I'm making them because my wife loves them. I say to her that I earn, in consequence, zillions of brownie points, but it's a bit like air miles. You never get to spend them.
Lord Kerr believes that it was the personality of the women in his childhood that gave him a driving sense of morality.
My father died when I was quite young, and I was therefore very much influenced by the women in my family. My mother, who's of extremely strong personality, and my grandmother. I dare say that their influence imbued me with a sense of what is right and what is wrong. And of course, in the course of one's legal career, although one has to maintain a certain professional detachment, occasions arise where you feel strongly that a particular individual's interest requires to be vindicated. Darling.
Set your feet later. Keep moving a lot before you set.
Lord Phillips has presided over some of the toughest and most famous legal battles of the last 20 years, including the trial of Robert Maxwell's sons. He too was privately educated and puts his life in the law down to one school visitor.
I first got attracted to the law when I was at school. A barrister came down to talk to us about the law, and I thought that sounded very interesting. So that when I went to university, I did a degree which included law. And I found that I enormously enjoyed the academic study of law as well. And that was the final matter that decided me that I would go into the law and go into the advocacy side of the law, become a barrister.
Attracted by the intellectual challenge of the law, as a young man, Lord Phillips had no idea which part of the law to go into.
When I started off, I went into a rather esoteric area of the law called Admiralty law, and that was really by chance. I had to do national service. I'd done my national service in the Navy. I'd learnt a lot about ships. So, pure chance, I started off in this area of the law.
Unlike his colleagues, Lord Phillips doesn't believe morality had anything to do with his career choice.
There are lots of things as a child I thought weren't fair. Usually they were very respectable decisions that my parents were taking. But I didn't go into the law because I wanted to put right things that were wrong. I went into the law because I thought it looked a very satisfying and interesting way of earning my livelihood.
Lady Hale was raised in Richmond in Yorkshire. She didn't start her legal career as a barrister, but as an academic lawyer specialising in social and family law.
My husband does most of the main course cooking, so I tend to do the starters and the puddings, and he does the main course.
She's the only justice who wasn't privately educated.
My life has been different from that of most of my colleagues. I went to a non-fee-paying state school, quite a humble school. It gave me a very good education, but I'm sure it was quite different from the education that the boys were being given. I went to Cambridge, and in Cambridge there were 3 women's colleges and 21 men's colleges. Now that was very nice for us. Great sex ratio. We had a good time, most of us, as well as learning a lot. But of course it was fundamentally unfair. And so you went through a lot of your early life realising that the world was not yet an place for women.
Given that Lady Hale's background is so different from her colleagues, why does she think she was selected?
Well, I don't suppose it did me any harm to be a woman, because there does become a stage when it is embarrassing that there is not a woman. When you first arrive in this body of very intelligent, powerful men, it takes time to work one's way in and learn and accept that maybe one could do the job as well as they're doing it. My husband sometimes says, well, don't you realise they were as frightened of you as you were of them? But I didn't see any evidence of that.
Lady Hale's appointment made history. But what difference does her presence make to the otherwise all-male court?
I don't know, of course, how my colleagues are when I'm not around. They may be just the same. I suspect that they mostly are. But one of the things about having a woman present is that it does become harder to express sexist views, that people begin to think more carefully about how they express themselves. But I wouldn't like to accuse any of my colleagues of being sexist, because I don't know.
All things being 6 men and 6 women. But the fact is that the law is a tough profession. It's not all that easy to combine it with having a family. And so, unfortunately, quite a lot of women drop out. We draw our membership so far exclusively from the upper ranks of the judiciary. And there aren't all that many women in those upper ranks to draw from.
But the gender imbalance and the lack of any ethnic minorities among justices. The decisions they make impact on the lives of all of us, so how in touch they are with ordinary life matters. Yet they tend to live within a fairly narrow social circle.
Well, unfortunately, I'm can be criticised for the fact that I come from a particular background, and but that was the only way in which people could get into the law, really, at the time when I started. I'm afraid I'm a relict of the old system, and people can make of me what they will, but I mean, that's just how it was. I've no idea. Really, it's very difficult to look at oneself from outside. I try not to be conspicuous. As I walk around London, I hope nobody dreams for a moment what job I do. I certainly don't proclaim myself as having any particular significance, and I'm often taken completely by surprise when people recognize me.
As head of the court, Lord Phillips is adamant that they are not out of touch.
We are ordinary people. We live ordinary lives. We take public transport. We, by chance, if you like, have ended up in this particular position, having started walks of life. I did national service in the Navy. I spent a year on the lower deck. I saw quite a wide variety of life in those days. We are ordinary people, but I think it's quite important that other people appreciate that.
Whatever their personal qualities, when it comes to making a decision, there is a set process which each justice must follow. Every stage requires a great deal of stamina.
It depends how much pressure I'm under, but I very often start my day about 5. Actually, this morning I'm working on a difficult case, and it's hard to get it out of your mind, and sometimes I wake up even earlier. Today I woke up about 3, and got up and worked for a bit, went back to bed, and then got up again at 5. These are intellectual problems, not stressing problems, but nonetheless, if you're concentrating very hard on a particular conundrum, it doesn't go away, and so you have a few hours sleep which you need, and then the problem takes over again.
The first part of the process is a long and lonely task, a mass of reading.
The parties have to provide us with written arguments on each side, and those are quite detailed. They may be 100 pages. We call them authorities, decided cases. Sometimes when you've read it up, you think, well, this is a very difficult issue. When I read the appellant's case, I thought that was utterly convincing until I got to reading the arguments advanced on the other side, which brought me right back. So I really haven't, at the moment, got a view on what's the right answer.
The next stage requires the justices to be at the court. Equipped with the facts from their initial reading, they will listen to barristers present both sides of the case. What will be argued over are key points and principles of the law.
What's your position about that?
I can't. That is a counterfactual question, my lord.
The debates that are conducted in the court are, for the most part, extremely stimulating and of a very high order.
And they have it?
Well, we respectfully say that it is...
I mean, what's wrong with that analysis?
We respectfully say it's inapt to describe that as objective, and it's inapt because it would lead to the consequence that we've already described.
The nimble-footedness of ability, the capacity to switch tack are all very impressive, and it's a very enjoyable experience to participate in.
That's a point in your favour.
It is in a different... I know. I understand that entirely. I'm not bridling it. Maybe I don't seem to be great.
The court breaks at lunchtime, giving the justices a chance to talk. It will be the first of many private exchanges.
At the end of the hearing, we have a meeting at which everybody gives a provisional answer, what they think the answer to the question that we've been posed should be.